So imagine you are backing out of a space in like a really crowded grocery store parking lot. You are checking your mirrors, you are turning your head, um, easing off the brake, and then crunch.
Oh, that is just the worst sound.
It really is. I mean, you have just bumped into another car. Now, think about what happens next. If this was, say, 20 years ago, you both get out of your cars, adrenaline is spiking, and you basically start negotiating reality.
Yeah, you were pointing fingers like you came out of nowhere.
Right. And they say, well, you did not even look. So you were both looking around for witnesses, just, hoping someone happened to be glancing in your direction at that exact millisecond.
Because you were entirely, completely relying on human memory to piece together the truth of the event.
Exactly.
It was a chaotic, entirely subjective process. Human memory was the ultimate arbiter of events, which meant reality was something you had to build retroactively through conversation and, well, argument.
But today, though, that scenario plays out very differently. You get out of the car, and before anyone even raises their voice to argue, the other driver just points to a little black plastic box mounted on their windshield.
My dash cam.
The dash cam. Suddenly, the argument simply evaporates. You do not need to negotiate the truth anymore because you can just retrieve it. The judgment isn't based on who remembers what. It is based entirely on what was recorded.
And that parking lot fender bender is, it's a perfect microcosm for a much larger, really profound shift happening across the globe right now.
Yeah, which brings us to our mission for this deep dive.
Historically, human society was built on the foundation of, who remembers?
Yeah.
Who remembers what was promised in a meeting? Who remembers how a business decision was made?
Right.
But today, we are witnessing a systemic transition where society coordinates trust not through memory, but through logged evidence.
And we have an incredibly fascinating stack of materials in front of us today exploring this. It's a mix of contemporary sociological research, organizational behavior studies, and some very revealing tech industry white papers.
Yeah, they all point to one core question.
Why does it feel like absolutely everything is being logged today? I mean, we have dash cams on our commutes, security cameras on our porches, automated meeting transcripts at work, permanent chat histories.
Social media archives that literally never forget.
Yes, and I want to be really clear with you listening right now. Our goal here isn't to debate whether surveillance is, good or bad. We aren't here to ring an Orwellian alarm bell.
Right. Framing it purely as a malicious desire to surveil completely misses the actual structural pressures at play here. The sociological research we are looking at suggests this is a calm, reflective observation of how the world coordinates at scale.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because my immediate reaction, and I'm sure the reaction of anyone listening, is to say, well, haven't we always had records, though?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, filing cabinets have existed for over a century. The Romans kept intricate ledgers.
Right.
Humans have been writing things down for thousands of years. We didn't just discover documentation yesterday.
No, we definitely didn't.
So what makes this particular moment so profoundly different that sociologists are calling it a paradigm shift?
Well, the difference lies in the concept of structural gravity. You are spot on that records have always existed. But if you look at the organizational behavior studies from the mid-20th century versus today, the role of those records has changed.
Changed how, exactly?
In the past, records were merely auxiliary. They were a backup system, the primary engine of society. The way we navigated daily life, business, and relationships was still human memory.
So the paper record was just there in the filing cabinet to settle the occasional severe dispute, like a big legal issue.
Exactly. But today, that center of gravity has inverted. Memory is no longer the primary engine. The log is. And the white papers highlight a simple reason for this, which is that the cognitive cost of navigating the modern world has just skyrocketed.
So human memory is literally no longer sufficient to hold our complex reality together.
That is exactly what the research is arguing.
But wait, is that just a volume problem? I'm trying to wrap my head around whether this shift is born out of a sudden deep distrust of our fellow humans, or if we are simply overwhelmed.
The data points strongly to volume. It is the sheer burden of scale. One of the white papers in our stack actually compared the daily cognitive load of a knowledge worker in 1980 to one today.
Oh, wow. Okay, what was it like in 1980?
Well, in 1980, you might field maybe a dozen phone calls. You read a handful of memos, and you make maybe 3 or 4 documented decisions in a day.
That sounds incredibly relaxing, honestly.
Doesn't it? But today, a typical professional is processing hundreds of emails. They have dozens of instant messages across multiple platforms, shared documents with live edits, and rapid-fire micro-decisions every single hour.
Yeah, that resonates. We are facing an unprecedented tidal wave of data points.
Exactly. Society is producing vastly more decisions on a daily basis than the biological architecture of the human brain has the capacity to store and recall accurately.
That makes me think of how a computer manages its processing. It's like we have been running the entire operating system of human society on our brain's local RAM.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. RAM is fast, it's immediate, but it has very limited capacity. And suddenly, modern life has forced us to open thousands of tabs.
And the system is crashing.
Exactly. We cannot hold all those tabs in our active memory, so we are forced to write everything down to a massive external hard drive just to keep society functioning without freezing up.
That analogy maps perfectly onto the structural pressure we are seeing. When any system is subjected to that kind of overwhelming load, it naturally seeks to externalize the pressure.
So the world isn't turning to logs because everyone suddenly became a liar who needs to be monitored.
No, not at all. We are turning to logs because the complexity of our daily reality has simply outgrown the physical limits of human memory.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me, though. The transition from a memory-based society to a log-based society isn't just a quantitative change where we just have more data, it is a qualitative change.
Yes, the actual nature of how we explain ourselves to one another is changing.
Right. Because when you ask a human being to rely on their memory to explain a past event, they naturally give you an explanation. They tell you why they did something.
And the problem with the human why is that it is highly problematic from a structural standpoint.
Sure.
Memories naturally decay,
Yeah.
and they distort over time.
So when we offer an explanation, we are almost always constructing an interpretation after the fact.
Exactly. We retroactively apply logic to our actions, or we smooth over our own biases,
Yeah.
often without even realizing we are doing it. A human explanation is fundamentally a shifting narrative.
I can definitely see that in the parking lot example. I might say, well, I merged into that lane because I thought the other driver was letting me in. That's my story. It's fluid. It's based on my internal feelings at the time. But a log doesn't care about my feelings. It doesn't offer a subjective why. It simply persists.
A log captures the exact, unyielding conditions of the moment. It isolates when it happened, who was involved, what they saw, and under what conditions the decision was made.
It trades the narrative why for the empirical how.
Spot on. And this leads to a massive systemic shift outlined in the sociological research. It's the move from what they call a result responsibility society to a judgment tracking society.
Okay, I want to spend some time on that phrase because judgment tracking society feels very heavy. Let's break that down. In a result responsibility society, I imagine the mindset is basically the classic 1980s corporate mantra. I don't care how you get it done, just get it done.
Right. If the result is good, you are praised. If the result is bad, you take the blame.
Because tracking the exact breadcrumb trail of the process was practically impossible back then.
Imagine trying to track every conversation, every phone call, and every gut feeling that led to a marketing campaign in 1995. You just couldn't.
So management only judged the final sales numbers.
Exactly. But today, the outcome is no longer enough. The research shows that institutions now demand a traceable history of decisions.
Which means if a company makes a strategic move, or a government implements a policy, or even if you, the listener, make a mundane call on a project using software like Jira or Asana, the demand is no longer just for a post hoc explanation of the result.
The demand is to see the receipts. The system wants the log of the exact conditions that led to that specific judgment.
But hold on, is this just micromanagement at an industrial scale? Because it sounds a little bit like organizations are just using technology to breathe down everyone's necks.
It can certainly feel that way to the individual, yeah. But the structural observer sees it differently. It's about liability and coordination in a highly complex world.
Okay, liability how?
Well, if a product fails today, a company doesn't just fire the manager. They go into the logs to see if the failure was due to faulty data, a missed Slack message, or maybe a bad algorithm.
Ah, so traceability protects the structure itself.
Yes. It allows a complex organization to surgically fix a broken process rather than just broadly punishing a bad outcome.
Which perfectly brings us to the elephant in the room when we talk about externalizing our decision history. If our brains are too full and we are relying on machines to track our judgments, We have to talk about artificial intelligence.
We do. Going through the tech white papers in our stack, it feels like AI agents are essentially acting as dash cams for our cognitive processes.
That is a wild image, but it makes so much sense. The introduction of AI completely rewrites the landscape of this logging obsession.
It really does. For a long time, we viewed earlier technologies like search engines or early internet databases as a way to externalize knowledge.
Right, you didn't need to memorize the encyclopedia anymore because the knowledge was stored externally.
But the white papers point out that in the AI era, we aren't just externalizing facts, we're beginning to externalize decision history itself.
Because an AI doesn't just give you an answer and say, trust me, I thought about it. The system is quite literally designed to log its own process.
Exactly. It logs the exact prompts that were fed to it. It tracks the specific data sets it referenced, the mathematical weights it applied to those data sets, and the precise conditions of its outputs.
So just like human actions are being tracked by cameras and chat histories, AI judgments are being meticulously archived as traceable histories.
And because AI systems can process and log data at speeds and volumes that dwarf human capability, they are really the concrete foundation of this judgment tracking paradigm.
They're building an infrastructure where every digital decision leaves a permanent, perfectly preserved fossil record.
A fossil record, yeah, that is exactly what it is.
I do have to push back here, though. If AI is just externalizing the history, isn't it also introducing its own hidden biases into the log? We talk about this fossil record as if it's perfectly objective, but AI is just math written by flawed humans.
That is a very valid point.
Right. Are we trusting a new system that mimics objectivity but might actually be just as flawed as human memory, only hidden behind complex algorithms?
That is a crucial tension highlighted in the research. You are identifying the danger of misplaced trust. We see a log like a massive data set of AI weights and parameters. And we assume it is the absolute truth because it is mathematically dense.
Because it looks so official and precise.
Right. But as the tech papers warn, an AI log only records the parameters it was programmed to value. It is a perfect record, yes, but it is a perfect record of a constrained perspective.
It lacks the broader, messy reality of the physical world.
Exactly.
So we are creating this incredibly dense, perfectly preserved fossil record of everything. But it might only be showing us half the picture. We have the data. We have the evidence. We know the exact mechanical conditions of every decision. So what does this actually mean for us? Does more evidence automatically equal more understanding?
And this is where we arrive at the profound philosophical cost of the transition. Sociological studies argue that this is the inherent limit of the log. We have constructed an incredible global apparatus for preserving evidence, but we are slowly, painfully realizing that evidence is not the same thing as context.
Let's bring this back to your everyday life, for you listening right now. Think about your own workplace. You have an hour-long remote meeting. It gets recorded. And an AI plugin generates a beautifully formatted transcript and a bulleted list of action items.
We all have those now.
Right. And the log is absolutely perfect. It shows exactly what words were said, at what timestamp, and by whom. But think about what that transcript completely fails to capture.
It completely misses the unsaid.
Yes. It entirely misses the fact that when your boss suggested moving the project deadline up by a month, your lead engineer went completely silent for 5 grueling seconds before quietly saying, sure.
Yeah, it misses the subtle wince on the project manager's face.
It misses the heavy, exhausted sigh before someone agrees to take on extra work.
Those are what the sociologists call the untranslatable nuances of human contact. A transcript captures the text, but it entirely strips away the subtext.
And when human beings rely on memory, we remember the feeling of that hesitation.
Right. We remember the distinct discomfort in the room. We retain the fluid emotional context of the situation, even if we totally forget the exact phrasing of the sentence.
While the log, on the other hand, remembers the exact phrasing with brutal, unyielding perfection, but it is completely blind to the emotional reality of the room.
It's like we are trading the messy emotional truth of a human situation for a sterile, perfectly accurate skeleton. We know exactly where the bones are, but we have no idea what the living creature actually looked like.
Oh, that is a great way to visualize it.
And the research asks a very sobering question based on this. As we move deeper into this judgment tracking society, are we inadvertently engineering our way into a context-loss society?
Context-loss society, wow.
Yeah. We are gaining unprecedented amounts of documentation, but we are risking the wholesale loss of underlying meaning. When you reduce a complex human interaction to a flat log, you strip away the buffer of human empathy and intuition. The system becomes dangerously rigid.
That rigidity is what worries me the most. If everything is judged solely by the cold, hard text of a log, there is no room for grace.
No, not at all.
There is no room for the messy reality that maybe a colleague agreed to a terrible business strategy in a Slack message because they were distracted by a screaming toddler in the background, not because they actually thought it was a good idea.
And this leads to a critical takeaway for how we navigate the future. We often operate under the assumption that the most important skill in a heavily logged society is the ability to generate perfect records.
Right. We are taught to write the perfect prompt, document every step, and maintain a flawless paper trail to protect ourselves.
But if the logs are missing the context anyway, then just churning out more logs doesn't actually help us understand each other any better. It just gives us a bigger pile of skeletons to sort through.
So what is the alternative?
Well, the organizational behavior studies suggest that the new essential skill, the vital competency for any professional, leader, or citizen, won't be the ability to make records. It will be the ability to reread them. Reread them? Yeah, it will be the uniquely human capacity to look at a sterile log, recognize its inherent blind spots, and actively interpret it to find the lost context. It's the ability to read a chat history and ask, what isn't being said here? Where's the friction that the machine couldn't capture?
So we basically have to become archaeologists of our own recent history. We have to dig through perfectly preserved digital artifacts and use our human intuition to guess at the actual emotions and pressures that created them.
Exactly. We are transitioning away from the shifting sands of human memory, which were flawed but deeply rooted in human reality, toward the rigid persistence of logs, which are flawless but emotionally hollow.
It really is a profound structural shift. We have gone from a world where reality was a negotiated story based on our shared memories to a world overwhelmed by cognitive volume, where we've had to offload our history to hard drives and AI.
We have traded the messy why for the traceable how.
We have gained perfect accountability, sure, but we are standing on the edge of a context-lost society where everything is meticulously documented, but nothing is deeply understood.
The tension we're discussing today isn't going to be resolved anytime soon. Human beings haven't fundamentally changed. Our flaws, our emotions, our deep need for nuanced connection, none of that has gone away.
Right.
But the structural way we coordinate trust with one another absolutely has.
Right.
We are demanding a level of mechanical traceability from a species that is inherently non-mechanical.
Which brings us back to that parking lot, pointing at the plastic box on the windshield. The dash cam solves the immediate argument. It gives us the unblinking, objective truth of the physical event.
It is.
But as we surround our entire lives, our work, our conversations, our decisions with these unblinking lenses, we have to ask ourselves what we might be leaving behind in the blind spots.
Absolutely.
We have spent a lot of time today talking about how logs fail to capture human subtext, but I want to leave you, the listener, with a slightly different, maybe even stranger thought to mull over. We know AI is advancing at an incredible rate.
Oh, it really is.
So what happens on the day when AI gets so sophisticated that it does start logging the subtext?
Well-
Right. When the machine starts analyzing the microexpressions on our faces during a meeting or the tone of our voice and logs its own interpretation of our hesitations?
That is a wild thought.
Will there come a day when we actually trust the algorithm's record of a room's mood more than our own memories of being there? It leaves us with an open, lingering question. If logs remain, will meaning remain as well?